Everybody can wake up.
Thank you. All right, we have some questions to start with Director Dietrich.
Thank you. Wow, I'm exhausted. I can imagine how you feel. That was a good report. I actually have maybe 3 or 4 questions. One of my first question is, have you worked with like 3CE at all in regarding to like energy infrastructure? They have a lot of, beneficial grant money or with any of our infrastructure or?
I know Michael was working with 3CE. I haven't personally, no, but I know Michael's been.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, we are.
Okay, because I think it's weak, because I know us at the city, they've been very helpful. We've gotten an electric dump truck, and I mean, there's things that they can help us out with that with this. So I think it's really important to cultivate that relationship.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a really
Yeah, we both sit on the board, so yeah. Well, actually 3 of us now, right? So, but yeah, so definitely I would start to work with that relationship so we can, especially since we're going to be having, our I don't know what you call the cars go back and forth, the commuter cars, and we're not just using buses. We have other vehicles that we use that transportation.
non-revenues.
Huh?
It's either revenue or non-revenue.
Non-revenue buses.
Okay.
Non-revenue transportation vehicles.
Yeah, those are usually cars.
Cars, yeah, but also trucks too, though. The trucks that we use to.
Facility workers.
I think of anything that's not a bus. Yeah. So, and then you brought up the Watsonville station. Is all the funding there for it, or are we still working to get
From our side of the house, yes. But from the housing side, I don't know. I don't know where it stands. It kind of went quiet.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden, I just saw something yesterday that came in. Because they're asking for some information. So I think they're going through kind of making sure everything's okay and so on. So somebody's working on that.
Who's the point person for Metro on that project?
Affordable housing. From our standpoint, for the metro side of it, we got Tersa, we got Reed. Our funding is set, and it's on the developer to secure the rest of the funding. So there'll be other state grants like the Affordable Housing Communities Grant, or they're looking at another infrastructure grant, and then whatever financing they put together.
So that's going to be interesting to see, and I guess it's a conversation I can have with the city, because I know as a council, I think that we've been educated on the fact that where you receive your funding is who goes into that housing. And so a lot of times, a lot of the new projects that have gone into Watsonville have taken funding from, let's say, the Housing Authority, right? And that list is pulled from San Benito and Santa Cruz counties. So it isn't just because you live. I think some people thought that, we're building in Watsonville, so only Watsonville people are going to be living in this housing, and that's not the case. I mean, it's pulled from lists that have 2 counties. So I think that it's been interesting to see how the city is going to move forward, knowing where. I know that the council really wants to house people that reside in Watsonville. And so.
Yeah. So the plan is still 100% affordable. I didn't see any county specific sources on their list. It was just state and the funding that we provided. But it's really early.
Yeah. So what do you mean really early? So,
in terms of the financing that they're kind of putting together for that.
Okay. So what do you expect as a timeline?
Within the next, they're trying to apply for a state grant in October. So that'll kind of dictate a lot of the remaining funding that they'll need to raise.
Okay.
They just had the first conversation with the city yesterday.
Okay. I'll talk to Susie about it.
Yeah, so we met Susie yesterday for the first time on the project.
Great. Thank you.
Yes.
And then my third question is the sales tax. If you do go out or we go out to a sales tax, is it 2024 or 2026 that you?
Well, right now, the way it's projected here is 2026. November
2026.
2026. And then as part of it, we get a little bit in 2026, and then it starts to kick in 2027 and beyond that.
Okay. And then if that doesn't kick in,
then you ultimately.
I understand it's not a good.
You're going to go back.
Yeah, it's not a good picture.
I mean, we're going to have to know sooner than later because we'll have to make decisions. We'll have a contingency plan too as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
But assuming that phase 1, phase 2 are go away because we could not afford that.
I mean, I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer, but like if it doesn't go through, then I mean, are we looking at COLAs? Like, we're already
Yeah,
really
it's for sure the kind of.
it's a really bad situation.
Yes. I'm not gonna say it. Yeah, I hate to say it's for sure, but it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be real tough.
Those are the days we want to go back to. So, when I first got here a million years ago with Mike, I think we got on the same time. Well, he's probably on way before me, but this last go round, the reserves there were none, right? So I think that there was a lot of pain that went through to like try to build the reserves back up, and so it's be hard to see it come back there. Yeah. And then I guess my last one's kind of a fun one. When's the rodeo, the bus rodeo?
Should we have a plan yet? I don't know if it's been
We don't
done
have-
yet.
We don't have a date yet,
No date? Oh, okay.
but I'll get you one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I reckon there's.
Yeah, talking with the zero fares and all, in general, the fare revenue accounts for about, what, 20% of our general fund?
Less than that, yeah.
18.
Well, it depends, because you start putting in the contracts, it's probably more like actual people paying, not like UC Santa Cruz or Cabrillo. It's about 7, maybe 8%.
Well, okay, without career. Yeah. And then, that was a lot of information. And, what is your biggest concern? Sales tax flat and the fuel cost volatility?
So right now today is fuel costs, because I don't know where it's gonna go. And then the sales tax piece is more concerning for the fact that we're probably gonna hit budget, maybe be a little bit better than budget, this year in 24. My concern is this latter half, or at least I'll just say January and February, because we're 2 months behind when we actually receive the sales tax, is underneath our budget. And if it continues, what I worry about is it's spreading, and we jump into next year already with the spread, and we're being flat year over year, but we're already going to go in the hole.
And then I could make a suggestion about, might offer that we could have the executive director, Rob Shaw of 3CE, come and just present a general 10-minute overview of what we're doing and how it applies to this district, of course, but we're into ag, we're into bikes, we're into electric bikes, all kinds of things. So I think that'd be an interesting thing. You might entertain that, I'd be glad to.
Yeah, that's great. I think Director Rocky, did you have a question?
Yeah, I think the comment, the Budget Finance and Audit Committee recommends this budget to the board for a passage. And that last Friday. Should know that. And my second question is, what, if anything, can you tell us about the impacts of the governor's deductions in the state budget on our?
That's my question too.
So right now, at least the way I'm reading it, and then of course I think others can pipe into as well. I feel like we're good right now. It doesn't look like we've been really impacted, at least right now, on anything. So we still have the TIRSA. If anything, that I feel like we have a problem. And I don't have the answer to this. This is one day I've been kind of noodling. Is that they're kind of spreading out of when we can do the drawdowns of the funding from, it used to be 2 years, now it's 3 years, now it's like a third. And how does that impact? Because a lot of the money that's going to some of the projects here and so forth, I think the money from, but this is not cycle 6, this is the newest one, is fine because we're actually, we're drawing it down over time. Meaning that, like phase 1, phase 2, you see it's kind of spread. So I think we're okay there. What I'm more worried about is if it is cycle 6, if they do something there and they spread that money, we have a lot of money. It's like all those buses at once, that $72 million that's sitting there. I don't know if we can draw down all that, if we're only getting a third. And if we can't draw it down, do we just put it on hold and draw it down later on? Is that possible? And then we float the cash, which we don't have, which means then I'm going to have to go out and get a short-term loan in order to float the cash, in order for that money to come in so we can pay off the loan, to bridge it. So there's a lot of dynamics at play, but I think it was June 15th, I think is when the final, as soon as that June 15th hits, then I feel like relief, that everything will be better. But right now, the way it's written, everything in there, it looks good for us.
I mean, I keep reading the paper, I haven't seen the word transit, and the list of things that are whack was way out, so
They left it in. And I think, John told me right, is the fact that I guess the last budget cycle, Newsom wanted to cut transit, but when it went back to the legislative area, they put it back in. That was last year. This year, he didn't cut it. So I feel like we got a leg up going in there because they're not going to touch us. But then again, it's a big gap between now and June 15th. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just touch on that really quickly, and then I'll come back to you, Director Paper. There was 1.3 billion in proposed funding shifts for transit overall, but the fact that they maintained all of the formula TIRSIP and 96% of the competitive TIRSIP, I think we were really fortunate that that was the outcome of the May revise. So sorry, I was following that, so I was excited to hear the question because I feel like that was really important to consider the impacts that the state budget in the May revise would have on us.
Can I add a piece to that? So, my second day, I got a call from Mike Pimentel telling me about this news.
that's our longest.
I think he knew about it and just waited until I got here.
Wait to see
So the thing that we're seeing is they're not lowering the transit overall amount, but they're shifting where the funding's coming from. That's the big concern. Is it was all from the general fund before, but now they're shifting some of this transit funding to come from this really unfunded bucket of zero emission funding. I can't remember the acronym for it, but anyway, so some of that's being shifted, so that's a concern. So that's why we've been reaching out. We met with our legislators, with their staff this week, really trying to advocate for this funding and trying to help them understand the impact that it will have. And I think we're one of the few agencies that is really out ahead. We have a true plan for this funding and what we'll do with it, and it will have a huge impact on us.
Director Paper.
I appreciate how cloudy the crystal ball is about fuel costs, but how about the shift from CNG and diesel to hydrogen? Do we have any guidelines? Do we have any confidence about hydrogen costs once we're shifting to that fuel source?
I mean, at this point right now, hydrogen fuel costs are still high, very high. I mean, the good thing is the fact that hydrogen buses get 1.5 to 2 times better gas mileage, if you want to put it that way. So, but it is higher than our CNG. And it'll probably, when we transfer from CNG to hydrogen, it's still going to be higher. So there is going to be a cost impact, which is not layered in here of that increase. But, there is this promise that they're building and they're going to start producing it and they're going to get it down to like $3 a gallon. So we're lucky.
I'm following the same promise and thinking about the timeline of that process as to when our buses are here and need to be fueled. So just keeping mindful of that. Also following Arches and the rest of our partnerships across the state. Thank you.
Yes, Director Koenig.
Thank you. So just to repeat what you said, it's basically this line and the other graph are basically assuming the same fuel mix that we have today.
Yes. Well, fuel mix, but for the hydrogen piece, we're assuming that there's going to be a little bit of an uptick. So there is actually some hydrogen that's built in here at a higher increase, but it continues. We know that when hydrogen probably comes in, it's going to be actually probably even higher, and then it's going to come down. I can't predict what it is. I mean, people are saying by 2030 it should be like $3, that type of stuff. But now it's trading at $13. So it's one of those situations where I'm guessing. So if I just smooth it out, being that it's in the future, you get the idea of the graph of which direction it's kind of going.
So you are assuming that hydrogen will come down a little bit, or in these projections?
No, I'm assuming that hydrogen, our uptick is as we convert from CNG to hydrogen, there's a little bit of an uptick, and then CNG goes away and the hydrogen's here, and then The hydrogen just grows just like CNG.
Okay.
I don't know the beat or the down side, but assuming it stays that same kind of trend line.
And if we get lucky, could come down. But I mean, I agree, it's better not to plan for
Yeah.
something like that. All right, can you advance this slide a couple to the exciting graph? This is the giant number graph. This one, yeah. So one thing I think you mentioned, just want to confirm, is that this assumes we do not continue free fare, zero fares,
Correct.
even if we pass a ballot measure.
That's correct.
Okay, I mean, I think, but a couple things on zero fares. The first is I think that probably at this meeting, we should push it out a year at least, right? I mean, at the very least, we should run it up to passing a ballot measure rather than throwing it out there for a year and then walking away from it. I mean, the other question is, do we want to do it at all? I mean, is it going to be seen as false advertising to the public? I mean, if we could include it in the ballot measure and say, hey, pass this, we'll keep up expanded service and zero fares, great. But if not, if it's going away no matter what in whatever, a year after we started, is it worth doing it? Right? Maybe we should start thinking harder about, okay, are we going to get Clipper carbon here? Like, how are we going to modernize our fee system rather than, have this honeymoon that, ends. So that's one piece. And then, of course, there starts to be some pretty significant year-over-year shortfalls, right? I mean, it starts at like a couple million and it gets up to 10 million. And of course, this is like assuming best case scenario where we actually pass the sales tax measure, which is not going to be easy either, right? I mean, we just saw countywide sales tax passed at 55%. And that was for all the things people care about the most whenever we survey them, which is local roads, homelessness, and housing, right? And now we're talking about something that, yeah, people care about the environment, people care about transit, but are we going to get to? I mean, we might need to seriously consider engaging some kind of citizen group to take kind of similar route to the land trust measure that's coming up this fall, trying to get that down to 50% for the whole state. And then, I mean, that fun, exciting giant dipper ride down, 2030, tells me we better start seriously talking about other funding sources, both this agency and at the RTC. I mean, the only two I can come up with are transit funding districts, allowing increased development in certain areas where now increased property taxes are paying towards transit, or Portland pricing, congestion pricing, like New York's done through a lower financial district where you come in, you pay a congestion price during a single occupant vehicle, that goes towards funding transit. I mean, got other ideas, let's hear them, but we need to start studying this stuff pretty soon in order to then actually be in a position to stand up these systems and hopefully start collecting revenue by the end of decade. All that with other sources.
Yes, Director Riskins.
So Meg, following on that a little bit, first of all, this is a great presentation and it's a lot of information that was laid out really clearly. There's a lot of transparency for the board and the public. So I just want to recognize and appreciate that. To follow Director Koenig's points, the trends aren't very good in terms of the long-term financial viability. And obviously a successful sales tax measure buys a good bit of time, but still this downward trend. I wasn't here when this board decided to advance free fares, zero fares. I think it was ostensibly, at least in part, to reduce dwell times. There are other ways to do that, such as with alternate boarding. But given this path and the timing vis-a-vis the election, it seems like it might be something the board may want to reconsider. Notice that next year with free fares, you'd be losing nearly $3 million in revenue, and the shortfall after transfers is about a little more than $3 million. So it's just kind of willfully creating that deficit, which accelerates the decline available cash. I'm not sure that makes sense to do. And I'll just note that it has the impact, while fares are a small part, as you pointed out, of the overall revenues. Currently, I think the special fares are about 66% of the total fares. In the base budget for next year, that would jump up to 73 because of the youth fare. If you add in the zero fare, it jumps up to something like 90% special fares are covering their budget. So that there are impacts to the free fare program, that zero fare program that we want to consider, even if there's a sales tax. Just something that I think the board should consider to direct it go next one as well. I did have, I guess, just two questions. One was that does the sales tax projection, not the sales tax, but the current sales tax, does the projection come from the county? It was surprising to me, and I heard you say that the first 2 months are already down, which is surprising, but that even in the next fiscal year, that you expect that to be flat, which is, I think, nearly $1 million off of the original. Is that data that comes from the county, or is it
The county
projection?
So the county gives us the number, because that number becomes our, how much money we receive each month. It's 2 months and 2 months lag. So February, we get that in April. And we'd actually put that as April money, but even though it's February. So when you start looking back and you look at pre-COVID, COVID, and then coming out of COVID, things really took off, and you could definitely see how much it was going up, based off of what time of the year and so forth. And our budget. And then we planned our budget based off of what we knew when it would grow year over year. When we put it in, and usually it's been beating our budget. It's been doing wonderfully. It's been going up, it's staying higher. And now it's starting to drop. So when you look at, sales tax per day for each of the different months, it's going down or flat. And I'm really concerned. I'm hoping we have this great weather here and people come over here and spend their money and everything of that nature. But like I said, I don't know if that's going to help it or not. I know that part and parcel that, people come in here, if they're buying houses, they're going and buying food, buying everything else. It's great. I don't know, because the county doesn't give me information to that level of detail of like what's changed, what's lower. Is it because people are not buying houses, they're not coming over here buying food? So you still have the same people who have a house that as their second home and they're not here and they're just not coming. I mean, I don't know, but just off of the trends of what we're seeing and how it's kind of coming down, it is trending flat to slightly down.
But to answer your question, the county starts with the state estimates and then makes adjustments based on what's going to happen here locally. They're the ones that come up with that number.
I would think with all the strength of the economy coming out of COVID, all building that's happening in the city and to some extent the county, that it would be up. I guess better to project than be conservative. Hopefully you're undershooting.
Yeah,
on that. And then just on the fuel issue, unless the arches can really make progress, it's natural gas that's used to create the hydrogen. So that curve that showed the CNG futures is probably more or less going to track what hydrogen is going to look like in the future as well, unless the technology really changes, which doesn't seem likely. So even with the switch to hydrogen, it's good to have optimistic future forecast. But I think also here it's good that you're being conservative, assuming that it's not going to be cheaper.
It's very good.
We are dependent somewhat on the federal government's announcements that they're going to create a green service. They did fund it, even just say,
That doesn't exist yet.
Director Duchek.